Everyone, Chris Sawyer here. The Varietal Show is back. I am in Healdsburg, California on Lytton Springs Road at a special winery some of you might know, a lot of you probably know. It is called Ridge. A lot of you think of Ridge Winery, oh, Montebello and all those great things that they do in Santa Cruz Mountains. And they do, never doubt that. That's where this brand originated. But they also invested in some amazing vineyards here in the Healdsburg area. I am with my great friend, Shauna Rosenblum.
Hi, Chris.
One of my favorite people in the wine industry, a very good friend of mine, a dear, dear friend of mine, and co-wine judge, and all these other things that we do together. Shauna has gotten the amazing opportunity to be the winemaker here in Lytton Springs. Some of you might know that last name a little bit, Rosenblum. Anyone ever have any Rosenblum wines? It is the same family. Her dad, Kent Rosenblum, was a superstar and also an amazing supporter of the Zinfandel movement. Zinfandel came into California right there with the gold rush. It is our original grape. It is our California state grape. And Ridge has done such a great job of founding an amazing organization called ZAP, Zinfandel Advocates and Producers. Every January we do an amazing event in San Francisco, and it's not a 1 day, it's a 3 day because it's that cool and there's that much to talk about. Shauna, here we are. Tell everyone kind of why Zinfandel works here in this area, which is part of the Dry Creek Valley appellation, which is celebrating its 40-year anniversary in 2023.
Yes.
So why does it work here?
Absolutely. I mean, I think we have this really unique combination of soil, weather, unique microclimates, and we have all of these old vines. You know, our vineyard is positioned right here in Dry Creek Valley. This is our Lytton Estate East vineyard, and then our Lytton Estate West vineyard is just across the road. And right on the bench in between Alexander Valley and Dry Creek Valley. You know, the hills behind us were planted in 1901, so 122-year-old vines. And they're all old field blends, as we know them, right? So Zinfandel
Mixed
and
blacks.
Zinfandel, Carignan, Alicante Bouschet, Mataro, Trousseau, Burger. You know, some more esoteric ones. Everyone's favorite Burger.
Burger.
Yeah.
Yeah, and it doesn't sound like it does. It's not spelled like hamburgers, you guys. Just FYI. You know, it's a funny thing, you know, because when the gold rush came, there were all sorts of people from all over the world that were coming in to strike gold. The Italians came in a little bit later. They were like, "Oh, okay, we get it," but they didn't bring over their original vines. No Sangiovese was really planted here. They just said, "Gosh, that Zinfandel looks pretty good," and they started planting this. And the people down the street would say, "You know, I like Johnny's." I like his wines because it has a little bit of Carignan in it. It has a little bit of this, a little bit of that. I want to make something similar. So these mixed black blends were really something special. Here we are tasting kind of the one that put Zinfandel on the map here in this region and brought you guys here to establish this amazing facility. And I mean, we could go into more about how cool this facility is, but we don't have enough time right now. But this is a really great one. This comes from right over the hill from us here, actually on the other side of the freeway, Geyserville, which is not technically an appellation, but it is. But we know where it is, and there are great restaurants in this little town.
Yeah, it's so true.
And they the Italians eat well. Never doubt them.
The excellent restaurant per capita must be at an all-time high in Geyserville.
And there's a lot of vines per person there.
Yeah,
believe me.
well, and so this our Geyserville vineyard is grown in ancient Russian river bed soil. So really quite poor soils over in Alexander Valley. And again, old Zinfandel vines planted in the late 1800s. There's a lot of Carignan in here, actually. And, you know, folks back in the day, as Chris was mentioning, they paid attention to what their neighbors did. They got cuttings from their neighbors. But for the most part, they were blending in the field. They really weren't blending in the winery the way we do in modern day. It was like, we'll pick this field and everybody in, and we'll make great wine. So they needed the Zinfandel for the flavor profile, the Carignan for the acid, the Petit Syrah for the structure, the Alicante Bouschet for the volume and the density.
That's some juicy information you just heard there, you guys.
Well, and it's, and it's so true. And at Ridge, we really try to respect that.
Yep.
We pick each individual parcel on its own and co-ferment all of those varieties on their own. And then we don't blend by recipe. We taste everything blind. So everything that I make, I'll taste without looking at it and without knowing what it is, and decide whether it is A+ grade. If it's A+ grade, then it makes it into our flagship wines. And if it doesn't, then it doesn't go in, and we don't compromise on that. And it's done by taste. So it's a little bit different every year. So the varietal percentage of Zinfandel, Petit Syrah, and Carignan in Geyserville and in Lytton Springs is going to be different every year.
Every year. It's amazing. Such a great wine. I mean, it tastes so great just as it comes out. There's that little bit of pepper, but there's a little bit of a density to it too. But it's still elegant and sophisticated. I would call this a stately Zinfandel. Ooh, did I say that? It's an elegant, sophisticated one. A lot of people just think about Zinfandel as being barbecue friendly, and it is. But this is actually something I'd probably do with duck confit. Something like that. It would be really nice.
Yeah, anything with nice fat, because the Carignan, the percentage of Carignan in here really brings a nice juicy acidity that brings out the fruit in the Zin, and it can stand up to anything with a bunch of fat.
I agree. So let's taste another one here. Yeah. We really want to promote ZAP and these amazing events that they do each year. So I'm really happy to be here with Shauna. I'm really glad that they hired Shauna because she's awesome.
Oh, thanks,
and
feelings mutual.
Yeah, and we've had so many good times enjoying wine together. What's so special about the Lytton Springs designate here? Because this is the road you're on, and we're looking at a lot of the vines that are in this blend. But what's special about it?
Right. So when we talk about Geyserville versus Lytton Springs, the vineyards aren't very far apart from each other, but the wines are pretty different. Yeah. And so the varietal percentage that we have of Petit Syrah that's interplanted in Lytton Springs exceeds the varietal planting at Geyserville. So Geyserville has more Carignan, Lytton Springs has a little more Petit Syrah, and so it's a little more kind of broad-shouldered. It's a little bit heavier, a little bit more dense. Yeah. Yeah, I think, Dry Creek is probably the best place in the United States to grow Zinfandel.
It really is.
It probably is.
And it has, there's all sorts of specialty soils here. There's like a composite type of soil that is where the old river used to run down the middle before they built the dam. The dam was built in the same year, or it was finished the same year that this became an appellation in 1983, which is a really amazing thing, and especially how far this has gone. But here we are on a hillside. What is the kind of soil type right underneath us right here?
Clay.
Yeah.
Clay
base?
Clay loam.
Clay loam.
Yep.
Yeah. And we are really right on the cusp of Dry Creek, and just a mile or so that way is Alexander Valley, which is a bigger, wide open area. This is a lot more hills, and when you really look at the direction this is facing, the only place I could really compare it to is Anderson Valley, actually, because it goes from southeast to northwest.
That's a good point.
And it really does go, and it's almost exactly parallel with the ridge that is Anderson Valley on the other side.
Right.
So there is a very interesting thing.
That's a really good point. Yeah, it is parallel with the kind of that Dry Creek.
I'll make a good point every now and then.
Yeah, that was a good
one. And what that means is that the fog will come in, but it does take some time. And then once it gets here, it really does have to open up a lot to go into Alexander Valley.
Yeah, and we saw snow-capped mountains in February of this year. We received 55 inches of rainfall this year, which is twice our annual rainfall, which the vines are very happy. I don't know if you can see or not, but the hills are nice and green. They look really healthy. We have a really kind of awesome microclimate. We have a crazy diurnal swing, meaning it'll get down to like 33 degrees at night and then, up to 90 in the day sometimes. And while humans might not love that diurnal swing, the vines love that. It's very good.
They actually do. It makes them rest really nicely. And probably is just as important, is it really preserves the natural acidity in them.
Correct.
And that's the most important thing. They'll ripen, and now it's time to go to bed. And that's just a wonderful thing. They open up slowly in the morning, but once they get going, they start trucking, and then they go back to bed.
Right.
So it is a very important thing. This has been an interesting vintage, this 2023. What did you learn from this vintage?
Oh my gosh, so much. We learned that we don't know anything.
Mother Nature's in control.
Yeah, Mother Nature's
FYI.
in control. We had this bizarre bricks stall out in September where, we didn't have bud break until April, and then we didn't start seeing veraison until August. Veraison is where the grapes start turning from green to purple. And you can kind of, start your watch and say, all right, harvest in 30 to 60 days. But this was the latest harvest I've ever experienced. Yeah. Sugar accumulation took like 5 months. But then all of a sudden at the end of September, everything was sitting around 19, 20 bricks. But physiological ripeness was outrunning bricks numbers, meaning I'd walk through the vineyard, I'd pick the fruit, the skins on the berries are soft, I'd put it in my mouth. The skins and pulps pull away from each other, away from the seeds, crunch on the seeds. They're brown and crunchy. The flavors, that means the fruit is ripe.
That's really good.
It means the fruit is ripe. You taste it. The flavors are intense. They're there. And then, stick it in a refractometer, 20 bricks. And it stayed this way for a while, and we believe it's because of the water content in the soil. Yep. The vines kept reaching down deep and then trying to push the sugar to the berries, but it had excess water, so it pushed water to the berries. Yep. And so in most vintages, when we start to see that dimpling on berries, it's dehydration, and that means it's almost gotten too ripe. Yeah. But this year, we were like, we need dehydration. And so finally, we saw in that 10-day forecast, we saw a couple 90-degree days. We knew it was going to happen, and we started picking like crazy. We picked 600 tons in 1 week.
Oh, my God.
Yeah, because, that was the window. And we saw it coming, so we were prepared for it. But it was a very intense harvest. But, the best part about that harvest is the quality. Yep. Oh my gosh, the concentration, the tannin quality, everything is so dense and concentrated, but low to moderate alcohol because of that brick stall out. So really concentrated grapes.
That's a good thing. Yeah. This is going to be a really interesting vintage when these wines come out, you guys.
I think this is going to be a collector's year.
Yeah, I mean, to be really honest, Pinot Noir producers were picking after these guys in a lot of cases, and it was that strange of a year. But when you have that much hang time and you don't have rain and you don't have frost
and you don't have days that go to 115 degrees, we didn't have any heat issues.
Yeah, it was a crazy year, but it really is going to show in these wines, the finished wines. Well, speaking of finished wines, here we go down to 2021 vintage down in Paso Robles. You guys know that Paso Robles is a very important place too, especially for Zinfandel. Before all the Rhone varieties came in, God bless Tablas Creek and those great guys down there. But before they came in, Zinfandel was kind of the king grape down there, and it still is, and it still remains. And I want to say one thing for Ridge and Rosenblum and Ravenswood, the big R's who made Zinfandel really what it is today. There was a point there where white Zinfandel was in, you guys, and you know what? It's a good thing, because you know what? It kept those grapes from being pulled out.
Kept the vines in the ground.
And this is the case down in Paso Robles too. And so because these grapes were preserved, or the vines were, we still have these amazing things that have outlived humans, So how old are these ones down in Paso?
Right. The oldest vines down in Paso Robles are, about 90 years old. So, and there are some older, some of the vines were diseased and had to be pulled out and replanted, but we do have old patches. Yep. And Ridge has been making a Paso Robles Zinfandel since 1967.
What?
Yeah. And this Geyserville since 1962. Yeah. So, I mean, Ridge was really, one of the first post-prohibition commercial wineries to start looking for grapes, outside of their own estate vineyards. And I think that really set a tone for the wine industry post-prohibition.
Yeah. One big thing about Ridge, Santa Cruz Mountains is a beautiful place. And you look up from the freeway in Silicon Valley and you're looking up there, you're seeing some vines up there. But you also see a lot of forest. And it's actually national forest and state forest. There's not much land up there to really just plant grapes. They are saved forest, and that's a good thing. And I really give Ridge a lot of credit for making the move to start sourcing fruit from here. It's a big deal. A lot of people know David Bruce wines and things like that were very good too, and he had to do it as well. And where did they come? A lot of them came to Sonoma County because we do have that this amazing stuff. These vines were planted here. I mean, these are old. This is old traditional stuff here. The only other thing that was really planted in this valley right here was prunes, and you heard it, you guys. Prunes were big back then, and it's a fun thing about how this is turned around. This is now one of the most diverse growing regions in all of California, and we see it here because these people were onto something a long time ago. That Carignan works here, Petit Syrah works here, Alicante Boucher
Absolutely.
works here. And down in Paso, it was still being explored. That was a lot more of nut orchards, you guys.
Yeah, right.
And it's crazy,
Right.
almonds and walnuts and everything. And you drive by it now, you're like, oh, really? That was there? Yeah, it was.
Yeah.
This was real agriculture. Still, California still is real agriculture. We just happen to have a lot of popularity as far as the wines we produce, and Ridge is part of that big equation.
Yeah.
You know,
No, it's so true.
it's amazing. You know, and when we taste this wine now, this is a little bit different. What is just different about that zone that you really, for me, one thing that just really kind of stands out to me, that the air down there is so dry. It's like dry air. Like you feel yourself sweating, but it's gone. You're like, oh,
Right.
but it's not humid at all. It's completely dry. So I feel like that's an interesting little difference between us and them down there.
Absolutely. And they don't, so I talked about the diurnal swing that we experience here. They don't really experience it on such a dramatic level in Paso Robles. And as a result, I think the fruit characteristics are a little bit softer. They're, this particular wine is, for me, like classic Paso Robles, just quite elegant, quite approachable, really pretty cherry notes,
Yep.
whereas these ones lean more like strawberry, raspberry, blackberry, type of berries. But the Paso Robles really has like a beautiful cherry, black cherry kind of note.
It really does.
It's dramatically different.
I
It's
agree.
dramatically different.
And
That's
know what?
the beauty of Zinfandel, though.
Yeah.
It's kind of like, the vehicle, right?
Yeah, it is, and we get to celebrate the fact that these vines are still alive and they're still with us. I mean, this is an amazing thing that these vines can outlive humans, and when you look back at Cabernet, I mean, they really live about 40 years, and that's not saying much versus Zinfandel. Zinfandel can outlive a few generations of people.
That's so true.
And it's a really important thing. And I want to thank, the ZAP organization, the Zinfandel Advocates and Producers, for really enlightening all of us. And I know that you learn things from them every time we go to those seminars, or we're part of those seminars, or we're just celebrating with other ZAP members, or there's people that are just followers of ZAP that come here to Ridge or
Yep.
Dry Creek or anywhere in Sonoma County or California. It's a really big thing, and there's less than 4 million cases of Zinfandel being produced. At one point,
I didn't realize that.
yeah, Ravenswood was producing 1 million cases, and your family's brand was
We
producing
had
about
quite a few.
750,000
Yeah,
around there.
we were doing a lot.
around that. So if you say besides them, there wasn't much out there. What do you think your production is here, just for Zinfandel? I mean, is it a guesstimate?
For Zinfandel, we probably do 100,000 cases of
Yeah,
Zinfandel.
yeah.
Yeah, and we're for being as kind of well known a brand as Ridge is, we're still pretty small.
Yeah.
Everything is still made by hand. All of our vineyards are organic.
Yeah.
I do all native fermentations. We don't use any yeast. One other really cool thing about Ridge, we put all of our ingredients on the back label.
That's
right
true.
there. So anything that I put in this wine, and
Yeah.
that includes tartaric acid or
Yeah.
water,
Yeah.
I'm going to list on this back label.
Yeah.
And I think,
And
opening
even-
people's eyes about Zinfandel and ingredients, it's important.
And on the front, it says exactly what the contents are as
Yep.
far as the grape varieties.
Yep.
So this is an educational thing that just looking at a Ridge label is very, very educational. And I think that you are such a great conduit of education for
Thank you.
everyone. And I feel like Ridge has done so much for all of us in learning. I have millions and millions of people that I know, it seems, that love Ridge wines, and they should, because it really is as heartfelt, of a display of affection for grapes inside the bottle as you'll ever find. And I feel like that's what we have here in California, and Ridge is one of the greatest ambassador brands of California wines. So,
Thank you.
yeah.
Thank you.
So I hope you guys, if you get this, can join us at these great ZAP events. And we've got one coming up in January here. They're always at the end of January, except for the COVID years. Let's not go there.
I'll be there. I'll be pouring wine.
Yeah.
We'll be pouring these excellent selections in addition to a couple other fun under-the-table pours. So come see us over at the Ridge table and try a little piece of California viticultural history.
Absolutely. Well, thanks so much for watching the Varietal Show. We'll be back next week, and I really appreciate you guys, and I appreciate this girl a lot.
You too.
Cheers.